So, good afternoon, everybody. This is Will Booth from DNA Business Management Solutions, and today we are doing another in our series of Lunch and Learn webinars. Today is going to be focused on becoming a data-driven organization with Sage 300, and specifically using the Sage Alerts and Workflow, an OEM product by VineyardSoft Corporations that provides the aforementioned alerts and workflows capability in your Sage 300 system. There's some pre-configured alerts that you can use
Muted.
there.
Unmuted.
Sorry, I think we had a little mute problem there. So there's some pre-configured alerts that come out of the box with alerts and workflow for Sage 300. And that can also be configured to do specific things for your organization. So we're going to go over quite a lot today. Don Farber from VineyardSoft is our presenter today. So Don, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Will.
Yeah, no problem. I'm going to make Don the presenter here shortly. So give me a second. And yeah, just let me go over here. Before I do that, so we're going to go over what a data-driven organization means, some of the benefits. We'll look at it. Don's going to provide a live demo of the product. We'll talk about how you get Sage Alerts and Workflow and some interesting news that's not quite announced yet from Sage. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So again, put your questions in the chat. And I'm just going to go make you the presenter now, Don. There you go. You should be able to share your screen.
All right, Will, and I'm just jumping into my PowerPoint. Pardon me, I'm going to go into slideshow mode, and Will, just do me a confirmation that you can both hear me and see my slide.
I hear you, and I see the slide.
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. My name's Don Farber. Thanks again for spending time with me today to talk a little bit about the data-driven organization and the Sage Alerts and Workflow technology. I'm going to start out with a brief overview to talk about this concept of becoming data-driven. Following that, we'll talk and take a look at a solution that enables a data-driven organization. As Will mentioned, we'll then have a live demo, and we'll come back to a final few slides that contain information about kind of potential next steps that you can take. So without further ado, let's get right to it. So the title of the presentation is the data-driven organization. So I think the first thing that we need to identify is what does it mean to become data-driven, and perhaps even more importantly, what are some of the benefits that organizations have seen as a result of adopting a more data-driven approach to their business. Now, I'm not going to go over these in detail because certainly you can read them as well as I can read them to you, but this just gives you an idea. This is drawn from real-life customer implementations of a data-driven technology like alerts and workflow, and you can see benefits from everything such as reducing clients' time to pay, avoiding supplier price increases, reducing late shipments, etc. So they're very tangible results that organizations like yours can see from adopting a more data-driven approach. So I kind of wanted to throw that out there first to say there's real value in adopting such an approach to business. And now let's talk more about what that approach consists of. So the data-driven approach, in the past, most typically, it's been the exclusive domain of managers and executives. And that's because it's typically those folks within an organization who have been tasked with analyzing key performance indicators and other metrics, which they then analyze and use to reach the best possible business decisions to move their business forward. Now, with this, the very same staff, managers and executives, are typically given the tools, and most typically those are BI or business intelligence slice and dice technologies to perform this analysis And these same people, managers and executives, are also very importantly given the time to perform this analysis and reach the corresponding decisions. But there's something that's a little nagging with this model, and that is, isn't it really true that the big picture success of an organization and of its executives and managers is really based upon the collective little pictures of success that are accomplished by the non-managerial staff, the worker bees within an organization? And so I think the conclusion that this pushes us towards is the fact that a data-driven approach to business should not be the exclusive domain of managers and executives. It should be an initiative that's adopted by all members of an organization, managers, executives, and all of us workers. So here's a concept to consider. How about we give every member of your organization access to a traditional slice and dice business intelligence analytical tool, allowing your folks to analyze business activities every which way from Thursday? Well, if you're like most organizations, the resounding answer to that question is, heck no. It's okay for managers and executives to do this. They've been given the time to do this, but the rest of my folks within an organization, heck, they're busy doing their everyday jobs. So again, what this reasoning leads us towards is the conclusion that different types of employees need different types of data to be driven to them or for them. And we need to drive the right kind of information, the right kind of data to the right people. And that all brings us back to this concept of the data-driven business and how that data, that intelligence is used by various people within our organizations. So managerial staff use data, use business intelligence to gain insight into their organization's success, failures, and how they manage exceptions. Now, to do this, pardon me, managers use data-driven solutions that do two things. Number one, it lets them analyze business activities to look for trends, anomalies, and inefficiencies. And it allows them to postulate what-if scenarios to help predict future business behavior and thus support changes in corporate direction and policies. Now, this is valuable, but this is not what we need to give to our workers, to the folks under managers and executives. Non-managerial staff very specifically need a different kind of data-driving solution, one that helps them complete their daily tasks at hand more easily, more quickly, and more intelligently than before. And in order to do this, non-managerial staff need a solution, a technology, that does just two things. Number one, gives them a greater visibility into and a greater ability to respond to the individual time-sensitive tasks that take up the majority of their daily work. And number two, our non-managerial staff need a data-driven technology that lessens their workload by automating repetitive tasks, those tasks that used to be done manually. For example, sending out invoices. When a customer places an order with you, you know that you want to ship that customer an order confirmation, an acknowledgement, or an invoice. You probably want to carbon copy the customer's sales rep or account manager. These are processes that are done over and over and over, day after day. And what we need to invest in is a data-driving solution that automates processes like that. And this is what is now called Operational Business Intelligence, or OBI, as if we need yet another acronym. But an OBI technology gives our non-managerial staff greater visibility into their daily tasks. It lets them know what's happened and what's happening that applies to them. It tells them what they need to do to complete their part in the process. And most importantly, it delivers this information to them when they need it and how they need it. Task automation. Just some examples I mentioned already. Automatically sending an order confirmation to a client when a new order is placed. Automatically generating a purchase order and delivering that purchase order to the corresponding vendor when an item approaches its reorder level. Or perhaps something as simple as every Monday morning at 9 a.m. give each of my staffers a list of their jobs that they need to start or perhaps complete this week. So, with this new understanding of operational business intelligence and driving data to folks below, managers and executives, let's consider a typical challenge faced by so many organizations today. And what it is? Late payers. Sadly, we've all got them. So, you sell products or services to clients. Sometimes they fail to pay you on time. So what do you do when that happens? Think about it within your organization. What kind of processes do you currently have in place to address late payers? Do you periodically run reports or other analytics to look for delinquent clients? Do you need to notify certain people, such as the client, hey, you're past due, their sales rep, hey, you need to follow up with this past due client? Would you like to, or do you currently need to deliver related documents? After all, if a client is past due paying for an invoice, maybe it's time for us to resend that very same invoice to that client. Sometimes is it necessary for you to do additional research? If a client is past due, you might want to run your AR aging report for that client and deliver that report to your sales rep who manages that client's account, or maybe even to your CFO. And finally, do you need to take some additional steps? If a client is past due, maybe what you need to do is put them on credit hold until they've paid off their existing debt. Or perhaps you need to change their payment terms, requiring them to pay in advance for any future orders. Now, if you answered yes to any of those questions, if those are some of the types of processes that you currently engage in, then I'd like you to ask yourself the following. Whose job is it within your organization to detect past due clients? How are they detected? What reports are run, and how soon are they detected? Whose job is it to notify the appropriate people, the sales rep, your CFO, the client? And again, how soon do they get notified? Whose job is it to regenerate the corresponding invoice and deliver it to the corresponding client and their sales rep? Who's responsible to perform that additional research, to run that AR aging report, to see if there are other issues that come into play with this client situation? And finally, who takes the time and who has the responsibility to potentially put that delinquent customer on credit hold or change their payment terms? If you're like most organizations today, the answer to those questions are the following. Who does this? It's you and your staff. How you do it? Right now, mostly manually. And how soon this work gets done is often not soon enough. And you end up in a very unappealing situation of having to write off bad debt, something no business wants to do. So to be competitive today, the processes of detection and response must be automated. And that's exactly what an operational business intelligence solution does. It automatically detects critical time-sensitive business conditions like overdue clients. It automatically notifies the appropriate people regardless of location or device. It automatically generates the required documents and automatically delivers them to the appropriate people. It automatically triggers additional research, such as running that AR aging report, delivering it to the appropriate people based on real-time data. And finally, an OBI solution automatically updates your application so it can go back into Sage 300, put a past due customer on credit hold, change their payment terms, or take whatever other actions are required. So you've got a picture of how an operational business intelligence solution can work. Let's now lay out the components of it for you. Pardon me, I'm just going to grab myself a quick sip of water. That's better. So we're going to look at the technology called Sage Alerts and Workflow, and it begins by automatically monitoring your Sage 300 system for any business conditions that are important to you. Overdue invoices? Sure. But how about other conditions like low stock, unapproved discounts, a customer who has stopped buying from you or has changed their buying habits? It is safe to say any business condition you can imagine can be automatically detected by alerts and workflow. And do note that bit in yellow down at the bottom right of your window. Alerts and workflow doesn't stop by just monitoring Sage 300. It'll also monitor and respond to conditions in any of your other business applications as well. So when such conditions occur, first thing we want to do, tell someone about them. Send alerts, whether via email, text message, fax, or other methods. And you know, when people talk about alerts, they often always think of email. But I like to mention one of Alerts and Workflow's more interesting alert delivery methods is by dynamic web-based dashboard. You know, if I'm someone in finance, I could get 15, 18, 20 emails a day telling me about past due clients, or I might just have a window up on my desktop machine, shows me a web page that says, here's a list of all of the clients or invoices that are past due. That window being automatically updated by Alerts and Workflow as those conditions change. Now, in the case of overdue invoices, we talked about automatically generating and delivering the appropriate forms and documents to the customer and their sales rep. So here we've got an example of an order confirmation in email format, PDF, with an attached PDF. This one showing the full details of the order that was placed, automatically sending this alert to the corresponding client and carbon copying their sales rep. Now, sometimes additional analytics are required, such as we talked earlier about running an AR aging report for a delinquent customer. All of your existing reports for Sage 300 can be automatically generated and delivered by Alerts and Workflow. And although there's a lot of information on the current slide, I just want to touch upon the very first bullet up at the top left, scheduled and triggered reports. A scheduled report is pretty obvious. Maybe every Monday morning we want Alerts and Workflow to run our AR aging report and deliver it to a number of folks within our organization. But for my money, triggered reports are really where it's at. Because a triggered report is one that gets generated only if and only when critical time-sensitive business conditions exist. So instead of waiting for the end of the day or the end of the week to run my stock status report, I can tell Alerts and Workflow as soon as an item gets to within 10% of its credit limit, then run my stock status report or my reorder report for that item and automatically deliver that report to my purchasing manager. So we've talked about generating forms, documents, and reports, but the one thing we haven't yet talked about are graphical alerts. Sometimes it's true. A picture really is worth 1,000 words. So Alerts and Workflow has the ability to automatically generate and deliver graphic alerts, whether it's bar charts, pie charts, line charts, comparative performance charts. Those are all part of the alerts that can be delivered. But now we talk about the workflow part of Alerts and Workflow. Although many organizations start out by using this technology just to monitor conditions, trigger alerts, and the delivery of forms and documents, it's very important that the product is not called Sage Alerts, it's called Sage Alerts and Workflow. So Alerts and Workflow can go back into your Sage 300 system, put a delinquent customer on credit hold, create a purchase order for an item that's approaching its reorder level, or potentially even notice that a client has changed their buying habits and perhaps go into a CRM or sales application like Sage CRM or even Microsoft CRM or Salesforce.com and actually schedule a follow-up phone call for the corresponding salesperson to make to that customer. So at this point, what I'd like to do is take a break and actually show you the Sage Alerts and Workflow technology. And so with that, I'm going to jump out of the PowerPoint and bring up the Sage Alerts and Workflow solution. Now, a couple words in general about this technology. First of all, it's a server-based application. What that means is that it's installed on just one machine within your IT environment. It does not need a dedicated server. You could put it on your Sage 300 server, your SQL server, your Exchange server, or even run it on a standalone workstation as I'm demoing it to you from today. Alerts and Workflow runs under any Windows-based operating system, which makes that conversation mercifully brief, and supports all versions of Sage 300. Now let's talk about what I've got in my configuration here. I've got Alerts and Workflow monitoring a number of different modules within my Sage 300 installation. I've also got it monitoring the content of incoming email messages, an optional capability within the application. I've got a number of alert dashboards. These are those dynamic web pages that show me details, whether it's overdue invoices, stock that needs reordering, etc. And I've got a separate branch, which we'll touch upon at the very end of our software demo, called Trend Analysis. But let's start out talking about a scenario that matches what we were discussing earlier, clients who are late in paying for their invoices. Now, out of the box, Alerts and Workflow ships with roughly 55 pre-configured business conditions. So the ones that you see here are just some of what comes with Alerts and Workflow at no additional cost. Now, although we can monitor overdue invoices, and we've got a few different events to do that, I'm actually going to pick something that's going to hopefully prevent invoices from becoming overdue in the first place, an event that automatically sends out reminders and invoices to customers when those invoices are coming due within the next 7 days. Now, within every event, it can have up to 5 components, and you're looking at those here. The first of those components is telling me whether or not the event is active, and if so, how often Alerts and Workflow is running this event. This event is running every day at 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, I say every day, but in truth, it's really not. It's running only on work days, because if no one's going to be in the office to receive an alert on Saturdays and Sundays, then there's probably no reason to have the event run on those days. Now, Alerts and Workflow can use any kind of frequency, so monitoring stock levels might be very time sensitive. We might run such an event every hour or even every few minutes. And other events, such as identifying changes to a customer's buying habits, well, maybe once a week or even once a month would be sufficient. So let's drop down to the second component of an event, its query. This is what identifies the underlying business condition that we want Alerts and Workflow to look for. In this case, looking for invoices that are coming due within a certain number of days, and we've chosen to trigger this on 7 days. Now, you've probably already noticed that I have 3 events that are all triggering on invoices coming due: 7 days, 14 days, and 30 days. Everything in Alerts and Workflow is based upon authorization, so if you are so authorized, you can come in and simply change the triggering criteria or threshold from 7 days to 10 days, etc. Now, suppose you have certain clients whom you know always pay late, and you've got an agreement with them, so you wish to exclude them from this event's logic. Well, you can come into the underlying query, and I'd like to take just a moment or two to talk about the query design process in Alerts and Workflow, because I often get asked the following questions. Don, do I need to be a programmer in order to write or customize these queries? Do I have to know SQL syntax or some kind of code like that? The answer to both those questions is no. No, you don't have to be a programmer. No, you're not writing SQL syntax. What you do need is to be familiar with the Sage 300 database schema. In plain English, you need to know what data sits where. And if you don't, I guarantee you that your Sage partner absolutely does, Will and his colleagues probably in their sleep. Just to give you a very brief glimpse at the query design process, you're able to pick and choose the individual fields of data that you wish to retrieve from the underlying Sage 300 database. You can do such things as total up all of the overdue invoices per customer, or identify the average overdue invoice amount, or simply count the number of overdue invoices. In Alerts and Workflow, everything is wizard driven. You have a lot of additional functionality that you can leverage. You can create calculations, everything done through a wizard-based interface. If I jump over to my filters tab for just a moment, here's where I'm able to tell Alerts and Workflow exactly what conditions I want it to look for. Boolean logic, ands and ors, calculations, etc. And I just want to draw your attention down to the bottom right of this tab, if column values have changed. If you've thought, I need to watch to see if an invoice has its due date changed, you can, in Alerts and Workflow, simply come into this option and say, all right, Alerts and Workflow, start monitoring this field for a change to its value. And Alerts and Workflow will capture both the old value and the new value of any field anywhere in the Sage 300 application. Let's actually test this query to see if we have any matching records. Let's look to see if we have any invoices that are coming due within the next 30 days. And give it a second to go through that. We find that we've got 3 matching records. So everything in Alerts and Workflow in terms of your ability to specify the precise conditions that you want to monitor for are right here in the Query Designer with no programming expertise required. So let's go back to our event. Once we've identified the triggering criteria, invoices that are coming due within the next 7 days, the next step is to specify whom do we want to tell about this situation and what do we want the content of those alerts, those messages to say. Now, in truth, most events don't have all of these alert delivery methods configured, but I just wanted to give you a sense for the variety that you have access to in alerts and workflow. Sending alerts via email or instant message or fax or web dashboard, all possible from here. Let's just jump down to our instant message alert and let's choose to edit that message. All of the fields from Sage 300, once again, can be put into the outgoing alert messages. Now, in this case, instant message, short and sweet, invoice number, due on a certain date for a certain amount. Now, supposing that you wish to add the actual date of the invoice itself, so let's just go and add that invoice date field. We'll look for it from our list of fields from Sage 300, date invoice, and simply drop it right into the alert message. Creating or modifying your alert messages is truly as simple as that. Email can be both in plain text and HTML, which always brings up the question, do you have to know how to write HTML syntax? Absolutely not. Alerts and Workflow ships with a library of HTML formats and templates to choose from. Now, looking at that list over on the right, you might also notice down at the bottom, it's got an associated Crystal report, a chart, and even a file, a Microsoft Word document instructing customers how to pay for that invoice using an online bill payment method. Let's jump over to our Reports tab just so I can show you a little bit of that. This particular event has 2 reports associated with it. After all, if a customer has an invoice coming due in 7 days, probably the single most valuable thing that we can do is to actually send that customer a copy of that invoice coming due. And that's exactly what we're doing here. We're telling Alerts and Workflow to generate this invoice in PDF format, but you could also choose other formats as well, such as Word, HTML, or other such formats. Also from here, you can see we're also having Alerts and Workflow generate a chart for us. The chart design module comes with Alerts and Workflow. Let me just exit from this window to take a very quick glance at the chart module within Alerts and Workflow. As I mentioned earlier, all of the different types of charts you can imagine, bar charts, pie charts, line charts, comparative performance charts, all available from here. These charts and graphs can be attached to outgoing emails. They can be STP to a person's preferred location, or they can simply be posted to web pages for easy viewing and access. Okay. So once you've identified the content that you might wish to send out in the form of an alert message, the next step is to specify whom you want those alerts to be delivered to. Now I'm going to start off with the first 2 subscribers for this event, even though the last 2 are really the 2 most important. Alerts and Workflow can notify any individual or group of people. In this case, we're notifying everyone in our finance group. Those groups are, of course, definable by you, and we're notifying them via not just 1, not even 2, but 3 alert delivery methods: email, webcast, and instant message. You can really annoy the heck out of someone with this application if you put your mind to it, but sometimes, in the case of overdue invoices, that's exactly what you want to do. You want to keep on touching someone until that invoice gets paid. In my case, I'm getting notified via just 2 methods, email and instant message. I do want to cursor over my name just for a moment because I actually have different alert delivery addresses based upon the time of day and day of the week. Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., I'm notified at my work email address, but on Saturdays, Sundays, and before and after work hours, I actually have Alerts and Workflow notifying me at a personal email address. But I mentioned earlier about these 2 last subscribers, the most important ones. Again, if we're looking at invoices coming due and we want to encourage a customer to pay and keep everyone informed, the 2 most important people, without a doubt, are the customer and the customer's sales rep. Now, those 2 folks are going to change, obviously, depending upon which invoices are past due, but Alerts and Workflow will always find and notify the corresponding customer and their salesperson or account manager. And by the way, Sage 300, of course, already has tables within it that store our customers' names, their email addresses, their cell phone numbers, etc. Do you have to re-enter that into alerts and workflow? Absolutely not. Alerts and workflow will read all of that subscriber data dynamically out of your Sage 300 database. There's no reason to put that data anywhere else since it already resides within Sage 300. And that brings us to the final component of an event. It's actions or workflow. This is where alerts and workflow can go back into Sage 300, or for that matter, into other applications, and actually add or update records within those systems. So for example, we talked about putting a past due client on credit hold or changing their payment terms. Maybe we're working with a collections agency, and at the end of every week, they want us to deliver to them a comma-separated file of all invoices that are either coming due or past due so that they can institute collections. Now, it's very important for me to note that this actions branch that you see here is covered under an additional layer of security. And that's because when it comes to writing data back into a database, you need to be darn sure that only the appropriately knowledgeable and expert people have access to set up such workflow actions. And that additional layer of security is exactly for that. Now, the workflow actions that can be performed are a combination, some wizard-driven actions to update records, for example, in Sage 300, as well as a suite of programming tools, including the ability to execute visual basic scripts, call COM objects, and in our next release of the product, which is currently in beta test, so coming along in just a few months, is the additional option to be able to make web service calls via a RESTful web API from the Workflow Actions module. So you've got an idea for how Sage Alerts and Workflow really enables and supports the operational business intelligence approach of automatically detecting and driving data to the appropriate people. Before we leave the application, however, I want to share with you just one more event. Because typically when folks think about monitoring and sending alerts, they think about situations such as overdue invoices, low stock, automating the invoicing or statement delivery process. And those are all very valid uses of alerts and workflow. But folks typically don't think about more sophisticated uses, such as automating the trend analysis process. And so I just want to share with you one more event. An event that automatically identifies customers who have changed their buying habits. So if we take a quick look at this event, we see that it too is active, but it is scheduled to run only on the first day of the month at 9 o'clock in the morning. So what does this event do on the first day of each month? Well, it starts out for each customer by looking at what a customer purchased for the month just ended. Then this event goes back a further 6 months for each customer. Why? Well, in order to derive an average monthly order amount per customer. And then this event, as its final step, compares what each customer purchased for the month just ended versus their average monthly purchases. And as you can see here, it's triggering on a drop, a decrease in sales of at least 30%. Because if that's happening, we certainly want the corresponding sales rep to know about it and reach out to the client to try and bring those sales numbers back up. So let's take a look at the deliverables. And I'm going to jump right into the corresponding email alert message. This alert message will skip right down to the body of it. It says, "Hello, salesperson. This customer of yours has placed orders for the previous month to date that represents a decrease of at least 30% over their average month." And then we're showing just 4 fields of data, but oh, how valuable those fields are. We're showing what each customer purchased for the month just ended, their monthly average, and then the decrease. The decrease shown both as a dollar amount and as a percentage. Just imagine a salesperson coming into the office on the first day of the month, opening up, in this case, their email, and having one or more messages alerting them to customers who have significantly changed their buying habits. Trend analysis completely automated. Okay. So with that, let me jump back into the PowerPoint just to finish up with a few final slides. So we haven't talked licensing and pricing yet, and it behooves us to do so. I think you'll be very pleased by how Alerts and Workflow is priced. As I mentioned, as it's installed on just a single machine within an organization's IT environment, you need just one license of Alerts and Workflow. And let's take the most typical scenario. Let's say that you wanted to use Alerts and Workflow to monitor your Sage 300 ERP application for an unlimited number of business conditions, low stock, overdue invoices, purchase orders that require approval, or customers who have changed their buying habits. You want to send out alerts to your own staff, to your clients, vendors, suppliers, etc. You want those alerts to be delivered via every method you have heard me mention: email, text message, dynamic web dashboard, and so on, and also to include the ability to have Alerts and Workflow go back into Sage 300 and actually add or update information there, such as putting a delinquent customer on credit hold. For all of that functionality, you are looking at a one-time purchase price of just under $3,300. To be exact, $3,295. Please note that that is a one-time cost for a perpetual license of Alerts and Workflow. There are no user fees since it's not a user-based application. What there would be is an additional 20% or $650 on an annual basis to cover annual maintenance and support. Now, the application is also available in a subscription method, and that subscription price for the functionality that I just described is $260 a month, inclusive of maintenance and support. Are there options? There are, but really just 3 of them, down at the bottom of the current slide. What I just talked about was monitoring your Sage 300 application, all modules, unlimited number of companies within Sage 300. But perhaps you also have a CRM application that you wish to monitor, or a human resources application that you wish to monitor, or you want to use Alerts and Workflow to monitor the content of incoming email. Well, each of those would require an additional connection or an additional application license. Each additional application that you wish to monitor is an additional $1,799. So twice that enables you to monitor 2 additional applications above and beyond Sage 300, and 3 times that, or just a few dollars shy of $5,400, allows you to use Sage Alerts and Workflow to monitor every single business application you own today or ever will own. We call that the unlimited connection license of Alerts and Workflow. So, wrapping up business benefits, well, certainly the fact that this application can be used across your organization. Yes, it certainly adds profound value to Sage 300, but it doesn't end there. All of your business applications can benefit from integration with Alerts and Workflow. It reduces what's called data latency, the amount of time between when business activities occur and your organization is made aware of it and responds to it. Alerts and Workflow delivers needed intelligence to any device. The person doesn't have to be at their desktop. They can be on their road with their cell phone to receive the exact information that they need when they need it. Alerts and Workflow automates the standard information delivery process, such as invoicing, statement generation, the delivery of purchase orders, dunning notices, and the like. It enables you to monitor Sage 300 and any other applications for critical changes made to any data that resides in those systems. Alerts and Workflow will automatically update Sage 300 and other applications. And as I've mentioned just a couple of times, Alerts and Workflow includes the optional ability to monitor and respond to the content of incoming email messages. So if your organization has generic email accounts like info@ or sales@ or support@yourorganization.com, I always like to ask people, whose job is it to watch over those generic email accounts? Or are those email accounts simply black holes where emails go to die? Alerts and Workflow can watch over that incoming email traffic, can automatically process it, respond to it, and notify the appropriate people. What makes operational business intelligence unique? Well, first and foremost, it is less than 1/10 the price of a traditional business intelligence slice and dice solution, $3,295 for a perpetual license. It's quick and easy to implement because it comes with that 50 plus pre-configured business conditions, low stock, overdue invoices, purchase orders late for delivery, and similar such conditions. The typical implementation time for alerts and workflow is anywhere from half a day to 1 day. There is no end user training involved. You know, the analogy that I like to use for alerts and workflow is that it's like a smoke detector for your business data. You install it, you tell it what conditions to look for, what are those smoke signals, you turn it on, and you walk away from it. It runs in a lights out processing environment. You only need to train one person on its configuration, and everyone else is the beneficiary of what alerts and workflow is doing. They're receiving alerts and forms are being automatically generated and delivered, but all of those other people don't have to get their hands into the application itself. I used the phrase set it and forget it just a moment ago. To me, there is no better proof of that than the following statistic. There are now over 12,000 organizations, and yes, I know it says 10,000 on the screen. Well, we do need to update that. Between 12 and 13,000 today, and actually for the month of May, I just received our report. Our support staff is receiving an average of 7.8 incoming support requests a day. And to me, that more than anything else speaks volumes to this application truly being install it, set it, turn it on, and forget it. It does not impose a significant burden on your IT staff. It has been the recipient of numerous awards over the time it's been in existence. I'm not going to bore you with the details of these, only to point out the very last one. Forbes, an organization whom I think know a thing or two about running a business, gave the alerts and workflow technology its top commendation for top productivity enhancing tool. And that's really what it's all about, making all of our organizations run more efficiently and more intelligently. I do want to share with you very briefly a very quick customer story. This is an organization named Toyo Inc. They're a manufacturer of ink for printing presses. They were doing so much manually, all of their invoicing and statement generation, all of their purchase orders, all done manually. And as a result of that, they were often running in arrears in terms of getting needed tasks done on a timely basis. They actually came back to us 6 months after implementing the alerts and workflow technology. They proudly announced that they had passed over 20,000 alert messages sent from alerts and workflow. I believe my initial reaction was, oh, did you mean to send all of that, all of those 20,000 messages? But fortunately for me, the answer was, oh yeah, alerts and workflow is doing exactly what we needed it to. I think most importantly for Toyo Inc. were their ROI statistics and a quote that they gave us. They were able to quantify a savings of over 100 staff work hours every month and an increase in their monthly AR collections by just over $11,000. And with that, they gave us the quote that you see in red over on the right-hand side of this slide. Alerts and workflow does the work of 1 to 2 full-time staff members. A lot of our customers refer to Sage Alerts and Workflow as their invisible assistant, and I think that's a very apt phrase. So, last thoughts. Should you become data-driven? Well, I think the answer is a definite yes. It is something that every organization is trying to become, or perhaps it's more appropriate to say to become more data-driven than you already are today. As far as gaining value from alerts and workflow, I've got about half a dozen questions here that you can ask yourself. Do you have a lot of date-sensitive data in your business? Due dates, order dates, delivery dates, discount dates, lease or contract expiration dates? Because if you do, alerts and workflow is the way to automatically monitor and respond to those date conditions. Do you have critical business thresholds that should drive business decisions? You know, it's great to send an alert when a customer exceeds their credit limit, but to me, it's even better when you receive an alert when a customer is approaching their credit limit, when they're at 85, 90, or 95% of their credit limit. One of the most valuable uses of alerts and workflow is to identify things that should have happened, but haven't, such as a customer who has not been followed up with, or a customer who usually purchases from you month after month after month, and now all of a sudden a month has gone by and they haven't purchased from you. Sometimes the most important information you need to know about isn't something that has happened, but rather something that should have happened, but hasn't. Do you, as a corporate initiative, rely upon exception management? And if you do, are those exception management processes automated? Are you interested in performing trend analysis? Do you need to know when critical business information in Sage 300 or else changed? And last but not least, do you have those manually redundant processes such as invoicing and statement generation and delivery, purchase order delivery, that are currently done in part or in whole manually? Because if you do, you should strongly consider a data-driving technology to automate those processes. Finally, if you visit the alertsandworkflow.com website, and you see the website shown at the very top of the picture on the current slide, alertsandworkflow.com, you'll see up at the, I believe it's either at the top right or a little bit lower down in the page. I want to make sure I have my images correct. You'll see text that reads, "Does your organization need alerts and workflow? Click here to find out." Well, that question will take you into the free alerts and workflow needs assessment. This needs assessment takes approximately 5 to 7 minutes to go through from start to finish. It's free. You do it at your own leisure. You can take it multiple times if you'd like. It asks you questions about the different processes within your organization, such as, do you send out invoices? Do you monitor stock levels? Do you have certain reports that need to be generated and delivered on a recurring basis? And based upon your answers to these questions, not only whether you have these processes, but how important these processes are to your organization and to what degree they're automated within your organization. After that 5 to 7 minute questionnaire, you'll be presented with a window like the one you're looking at right now, the needs report card. It will show you, for the general categories of what alerts and workflow can do, just how much value alerts and workflow could offer to your organization. And so we certainly encourage you to visit alertsandworkflow.com, click on, does my organization need alerts and workflow, to take this needs assessment tool. And so with that, that brings me to the end of this presentation. I know we want to leave some time for Q&A. Before I do reconnect with my colleague, Will, I just want to make one more comment. You can download and try out Sage Alerts and Workflow at no cost, free to you. It is the full function software. Absolutely nothing is disabled. You can download along with it the collection of pre-configured events for Sage 300 and start using the application. Give it a try, see what it can offer to your organization. If you run into any questions or problems whatsoever, you have free and unlimited access to our technical support department. So try it out for yourself. I think you'll really enjoy it. And now, we'll see if we have any questions.
Thank you very much, Don. That was excellent. I always enjoy refreshing myself on what Sage Alerts and Workflow can do. And your presentation was excellent as always, so I thank you. I do have a couple of questions here, so let me just go through them. The first one was, you mentioned schedule versus triggered alerts in your presentation. Can you give an example of a useful triggered alerts, and are any of the pre-configured alerts trigger alerts, or is this just something you set to be triggered at what's already in there, you know, like the already included alerts that you get with the system you mentioned, the 50 of them?
Yes, so a few different answers to that question, Will, and that does indeed. So first of all, I'm actually just bringing up the application again. So just to show you, for example, within the AR space, the pre-configured triggers that ship with the product, for example, for AR, I think there are about 24 or so of them. So actually, you can get a list of all of the pre-configured triggering conditions. And again, I'm going to go and open a web browser because I want to navigate us to alertsandworkflow.com. So let me just do that right now. And the reason that I wanted to bring you to this website is that over on the right, you'll see it says Buy Sage Product. And within that page, you can drop down to Sage 300. And over on the right-hand side of this page, you'll see a button called List of Included Events. So a complete list of those 55 triggering conditions are available from here. And then I just wanted to go to an additional explanation, because sometimes people say, okay, can you trigger an event?
Oh, Don, did we lose you? He's on the web version of GoToMeeting. He may have disconnected there. So I'll just take this time while Don may have to reconnect there. So give me one moment.
Website that folks can access, drill down into the Sage 300 product and access the list of pre-configured events. So all of the triggering conditions are available on a document from the Alerts and Workflow website. And then I also just wanted to mention that Alerts and Workflow, in addition to those 55 pre-configured events, an organization can create an unlimited number of additional triggers of their own. And those triggers can be both scheduled, so Alerts and Workflow can look for those conditions on a recurring basis, or they can be triggered in real time as soon as a record is either entered or updated within the Sage 300 system.
Okay. Well, that certainly makes sense. So let's go to the next question. Or I have the page up, so we can address that after. But let me go back to the list of questions here. Let me just I go back to this just because I had it up. So the next question that was posed. I guess you kind of mentioned it, but how long does it typically take to set up, and what do end users need to know if they want to create or modify alerts? Is it a certain type of end user, or is it anybody could pretty easily learn to do that?
Yeah, really anyone can learn to do that. So the typical setup time, Will, is about 4 hours, about half a day. Now, having said that, I do want to put a verbal asterisk at the end of that, because I tend to divide alerts and workflow functionality into 3 areas. And those areas are alerts, reports, and workflow. So the alerts and reports components are those that are most typical for a customer to start out with. And I strongly encourage folks to walk before they run. Alerts and workflow is a little bit like a Swiss Army knife. It can do so much, so you're kind of tempted to do everything all at once. But when I say that 4 to 8 hour implementation time, it really is to get installed and configured 6 to 12 or so events which trigger alerts, and which also trigger the generation and delivery of forms, documents, and reports. When you start to talk workflow and you're talking about writing data back into a system, that can sometimes require a little bit more technical expertise depending upon which systems are being written into. So I would like to say that typically in the area of that last component, that workflow, triggering updates back into applications, those are ones typically that a customer will turn to their Sage business partner to implement. That 4 hour estimate for getting alerts and workflow implemented, initially configured, is a very accurate one. A person does not need to be a programmer. It does help to have an understanding of the Sage 300 database schema, i.e. knowing what data is stored where in Sage 300. Right. And finally, I want to point out that from the Alerts and Workflow website, the manual, which was written by English majors and not by programmers, is really very helpful. But perhaps even better than that is an online library of training videos. That is free to everyone. There are about 35 or so videos there, which sound like a whole lot, but each video runs an average of 10 to 12 minutes. They're the best training vehicle we have, and they're absolutely free.
Okay, I'll make sure I add that in the follow-up email to the event. So
Perfect.
that shouldn't be a problem. I guess we have another minute or two here. I won't take too much time from anybody, but um, are you able to talk a little bit about what Sage and VineyardSoft is planning to announce with Sage 300 clients for alerts and workflow, or is it too early to talk about that?
No, it's not too early. Since it was being publicly discussed at Sage Summit, which
Oh, it
is
was.
where
Okay,
I took
perfect.
that last presentation from, so I'm at liberty to announce it. So Sage and VineyardSoft, what we're doing together is basically offering all Sage 300 clients a free 1-year subscription to Sage Alerts and Workflow. So all of the pre-configured events, those 55 plus events I mentioned, and the application is truly yours, being Sage 300 clients for the taking. It is a 100% free license. There's no hidden cost there. It is an annual license, so you'll have 12 months to get comfortable with it. It certainly won't take that long. With it comes a getting started with Sage 300 and Sage Alerts and Workflow kind of mini manual of about 23 pages or so. So again, fairly quick to get the application installed and up and running. And then after that initial 12-month period, we then leave it up to the individual client to determine if they've gotten enough value from Sage Alerts and Workflow. Needless to say, we're confident that you will. That's why we're making this offer. We want really folks to try it out for more than just, that typical 15 or 30-day period. We want you to have a successful track record of using alerts and workflow. Folks will have free access to our tech support department during that initial 12-month free license, and access to all of the other materials, documentation, training courses, etc.
Okay, perfect. So that's great. And I think once version 2020 of Sage 300 Cloud comes out in the summer, late summer, I believe it's gonna add at that time multiple contacts for customers and vendors. So and many contacts. So even more powerful because you'll be able to set alerts to send invoices to one person or group and statements to another. And then if they don't respond, you could send it right up the organization. So we don't have that capability so much today, although I'm sure you could configure it, but it should make it easier. And I think it's a real step forward to take Sage 300 to the next level of, being that kind of data-driven organizational tool. So, Don, I won't keep you. It is 1 o'clock. There was one question. A couple last-minute ones here. That pricing, I think, is the same in Canada and the U.S. that you mentioned, is it not? I'll check on that and I'll
It is,
mention.
correct.
Yeah, it is.
I believe it is, but
Yeah, it's the
double
same.
check on that,
I
Will.
will.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the response email. One person asked, can you set it up to automatically remit a new AR invoice as you post them?
Yes, absolutely you can.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So, and after today's webinar, Don, I do want to thank you. It was a great informational setting, and I'm sure we'll be talking again. And we are gonna, this was recorded, so I'm gonna send it to everybody, and we'll post it on our YouTube channel so you can watch. And any questions, please, talk to Mike or Mike Samir or myself, Mike at da.ca, Will at da.ca, or just call the office here and we can walk through it with you and see what you want to do and when we can get started. So again, great, Don, really appreciate it. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and we'll be having another session later this month about hosting. So look for that on our website. So host your Sage 300 if you don't want to have it on your own servers, and then your alerts will always run no matter what because they make sure the servers stay up. But I do appreciate you taking the time today with us, Don. So thanks.
My pleasure, Will. Thanks everyone for your time today, and look forward to working with you.
Okay. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks.